Hey, welcome to my channel. I'm Sherry. I am a musician, a writer, and a life coach. And today's topic is going to be how to feel satisfied when your life absolutely sucks. So these are methods that I actually use because my life actually sucked for a really, really long time. I literally started doing the hard work of being satisfied at a time when my life was an absolute total disaster. Well, one of the times it was an absolute total disaster. In this instance, I was really, really broke and in a really, really bad relationship. And when I say broke, I mean like not able to go to like weddings, not able to go home to see my family, like hardly ever, like really broke. And I remember probably the worst of it was like I had to take out like this awful credit card to like go to my aunt's funeral, and that was like anyway, so my point is it was like not good financially, and besides that I was in like just like a really absolutely horrible relationship. So when I really started like doing like reading about like how important it was to actually like work on how you were feeling, it was just really hard to imagine feeling good in the circumstances I was in at that time. And I had heard about the law of attraction before and the importance of my thoughts, like probably I had heard about it like even like 20 years earlier, but it wasn't really until I started reading Abraham Hicks where she really just drove home the point of like how important it was to use your emotions to feel good. So basically, these are the methods that I started using, despite the fact that my physical circumstances were just absolutely horrible. Now, in my case, it was like extreme debt and just like working all the time and having just like a really bad relationship. But for others, I mean, there's just so many reasons that life can suck. Like you can lose people, you can be unhealthy, like there's just a plethora of other circumstances. And I'm not even saying that mine were like, you know, relatively that bad compared to like a lot of people. My point is just that I really started doing this work when my life was just like far from ideal. So that being said, these are practical methods like that work for me, and I like if they work for you, amazing. Everyone's different. There's no like one set path for everyone, but these are things like really practical methods that I like just absolutely decided I'm gonna do this no matter what, because like I couldn't see any way out of my situation. Like I couldn't see any way, like no matter how much money I made, there was always some drama where it all disappeared. No matter how much I tried to improve my relationship, no matter how much I tried to leave, like it just was not happening. Like it was just really hard to see like any way out of my situation. So I just really just made up my mind, like I don't know how to fix this, but all I can do is sort of like try to be satisfied despite what was going on around me. Okay, so the first method that I used was to look for things in my life that were satisfying, you know, like things that were actually going well. In my case at the time, thankfully I had my health. I didn't really have to worry about like dieting and stuff like that. So like that part of my life like was probably the only part that was really working out for me. Well, no, I was also satisfied with what I was doing. Even though I was working really hard, I was still working hard playing music, which is something I absolutely loved. It's my cat. So at the time I was a full-time street musician, which is a lot of work, but I really did enjoy playing music for people and uplifting them. So I kind of just focused on that, and I decided I was just gonna like, instead of thinking of when I was playing music, like just being a street musician is just really hard work, and it's just like you don't know how much you're gonna make. It's kind of like being in the service industry, only worse. So I decided that while I was playing music, instead of thinking about like all of the debts I had to pay and how much money I had to make, that I was just gonna think about enjoying the music and just like uplifting people around me. And that was gonna be my job, is just to like use that space in my life. And it was a large space because I was usually playing like like at least 8 to 10 hours a day on the streets, if not more. So I had a lot of time where I was doing that. So I decided I was just gonna like spend that time in my life rather than worrying about money and debt, to just like try to like just get myself into like a really good state of mind. And by just focusing on things I wanted and try to conjure that like really positive emotion. So it went from being a time of a lot of stress to a time where I was just like, this is like the practice. This is my practice, because it was really in that situation I was in, it was nearly impossible to get into that state around the person I was with or in many other instances. So that was like almost like the one space in my life like that I was able to really like start with that practice. So what I did is every time I was playing music on the streets, I just like started just being like, well, you know, what would it feel like to have this, and how do I want to feel? And I just like finally was able to get myself into like an okay state, and then eventually into like a really high state when I was playing music. And I started actually making like a lot more money, and like actually like a lot of really interesting magical things happened. So I personally know it came from that intention to just like, despite the fact that I just was not living the life I wanted to live, to just be like, I have the space to like conjure this feeling of satisfaction. And then I just started, you know, just like acknowledging like, well, like I am pretty healthy. Like, you know, there's certain things that like other people are dealing with that I'm not. And I just acknowledge those things. So that's number one. The second one is making satisfaction a priority. I know I am guilty of this. I feel like a lot of people are, especially women, but men too, like this feeling that like it's selfish to be satisfied, that like it's almost like wrong, like you have no right to be satisfied, especially if your life sucks and you're nowhere where you want to be. So for me, it was like just like making it that important to be like, well, this is important now. Like my satisfaction is like, should be a priority, and it's okay that like I don't have the things that I'm supposed to have to be justified in feeling it. Like it's just rampant. It's like, oh, I'll feel satisfied when I get this job I want, or this promotion, or this whatever relationship. So it was almost like I had to put that aside for a while and just focus on the feeling and be like, you know what, it's okay that it's okay that like everything sucks. I can just feel satisfied. So that was actually strangely a big game changer for me, to just like be like, it's okay, you know. And that allowed me to like just like really do the work of actually feeling satisfied. So number 3 is tied in with the first two, and that's just learning how to cultivate an optimal state of mind. And everyone is so different. Like what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for the other person, but what really worked for me was just like, just constantly, I just ask myself like all day, every day. And I learned this exercise, disclaimer, from Abraham Hicks, like the what would it feel like exercise. I kind of put my own twist on it, but what I did is I just like asked myself like, and even in the midst of like straight up like being yelled at, like I just asked myself, what would it feel like to be in a good relationship? What would it feel like to actually have money and to be able to like, sorry, I have a special needs cat. It's okay. And like, what would it feel like to, you know, to be able to like do something besides work 15 hours a day and then come home and do more chores, you know, just like, but legitimately with the intent to like actually conjure that emotion. And honestly, sometimes it was really effective and sometimes it wasn't, and it really depended. But it was just, I just did it all the time. It was just like my mantra. I was just like, well, what would it feel like to like not have everything suck? You know. And eventually I was able to sort of get into this like better state of mind, which honestly at first felt really strange, because when you're used to having like a certain emotion and having a set of circumstances, you sort of like just get so used to feeling a certain way that like it actually really feels like weird at first when you're used to just like not feeling good all the time. Like it almost feels like there's like an imposter in your life. So if you do this work, and you try it, like just be aware that like that's completely normal, I think. So number 4 is cultivating close relationships. I realized at the time part of the reason like I felt so stuck was that I was isolated and I didn't know many people. So I kind of just started to at the time like engage more with like the people around me. It's kind of, I was like a full-time street musician, so I didn't have like a typical job and a typical life where you have coworkers or like that kind of thing, which is generally where like, you know, a lot of people find their friends. But I was around street musicians all the time, so I just started talking to them and engaging with them, and eventually it became like almost like a family. Like, so I kind of developed these relationships, Kara, outside of you know, the one relationship that I was in before that sort of, you know, isolated me. So that I think made it a lot easier to break out of that like habitual state of just like loneliness. So another really, really important component to satisfaction that I don't think a lot of people talk about, but I personally think it's very, very important, is having goals in your life. A lot of not feeling satisfied is sort of this feeling of just like, this is where I'm at and it's forever, and not actively working for anything else. So I actually think there's a big correlation between having goals and looking forward and satisfaction, because when you're like working towards something, even if it's something that doesn't seem like a big deal, like you're working on building like a wooden ship, or like, I don't know, or you're working on like a garden, or like having like a little more free time, whatever it is you're working for, it gives you this kind of life energy of moving forward. And I think that's really important. Like you don't have to be like some crazy salesperson or entrepreneur that's trying to make like $1 billion. Like literally any kind of goal that's like you're setting aside time and you're like working towards, and it's something that seems achievable, not like some outlandish goal that you wanted for 50 years or 5 years or whatever that's unachievable and you're just browbeating yourself that this is never going to happen, but some kind of like at least one like achievable goal that you know you can work towards and that you can put in the time and energy and achieve, I think is actually really helpful to like to developing like this sort of feeling of satisfaction with life. Because a lot of dissatisfaction, I feel like, has to do with like just like stagnation, like feeling like everything's just the same and there's no hope and there's no moving forward. So me personally, I've always been goal oriented, but I think it's just like, I think it's just so important to satisfaction. Number 6 is actually spend some amount of time doing something that you really want to do for yourself. Like not like just like watching like a show or drinking or like whatever to like ease like the agony and monotony of the day, but something that's like exciting, like, you know, like, oh, I really want to like sew this dress, or like, you know, check out this like movie or scene I've never been to, like something that's like, it's not just this like kind of way of squelching your misery, but something that like your soul wants. Like I think that's important. I feel like that is something that like everyone should be doing and it can be as ridiculous as you want it to be, like working on my car or like, you know, anything, whatever, but like some amount of time during the day that you're doing something for yourself that you really like. And honestly, like it's unrealistic to think that you're going to be able to do it for like hours a day, but even like 1 minute during the day that you're like, I really want to do this, I'm going to set aside the time, like it will actually conjure this minute feeling of satisfaction. And if you can just start to carry it throughout the day, like it could actually be really helpful. So I think it's worth trying, but like I said, there's no cut and dry way to feeling satisfaction, but that's one thing that I make sure I do every day. And I'm very fortunate now that I do have like more time than I had before, but I make sure I do like things that like my soul loves and needs every day, like music and writing. And it definitely helps with, you know, feeling satisfied. And 7 is connected to the optimal state of mind, but it's just like changing your inner dialogue, because satisfaction is ultimately so linked to what we're saying about ourselves. Like, you can have the most perfect, amazing life in the world, but if you're constantly telling yourself you don't deserve it, you're not good enough, and blah, 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 then you're not going to feel satisfied. Like, there's literally like millionaires with like perfect children and perfect lives that don't feel satisfaction, because it's not just what's on like in the outside world. Like, it's so much like what you're thinking about yourself. And obviously this is easier said than done. You can't just flick a switch and suddenly just like love yourself. But just having the intention is a good start. So 2 main ways that I work on this is like I meditate a lot. I've done it for years, almost every single day, and it's because I love it. It's not really a chore so much as just like it's a space that I look forward to, but it takes time. But meditation is a really good way to like settle like the habitual dialogue and kind of like just like put your mind at rest. And also guided meditation is good because it can like just like guide you towards like better feeling thoughts and stuff like that. So for me, meditation is so important. And then also just like asking yourself like what would satisfaction feel like? How would I feel if I were a satisfied person? Like, what would I be thinking of, you know? And just like whatever you can do to sort of like try to nudge your thoughts in like the direction is helpful. So those are the methods that work for me, and I just wanted to share them because like for me it's been life-changing. And if anyone benefits from it, that's amazing. And if you have like other ways or methods that you've used, please share them. And thank you for watching.